Hello friends, thanks you for being here today. I'm excited to share a heartfelt story with you. The day Benjamin first called me Dad, his small hand warm in mine as we crossed the park, I felt my heart stitch itself to his and his sister Elle's forever. Years later, those same lips would hiss, "You're not my real dad," unraveling the family I'd poured my soul into building. I'm Jacob, and this is how I learned that love can bind you, until it breaks you, and only walking away can set you free. I'm a man forged by hard work, believing that duty and devotion define a life well lived. When I met Diana, she was a widow, her eyes shadowed by grief, raising 2 young children alone. Benjamin, at 4, was a whirlwind, clutching toy cars, his questions tumbling like leaves in the wind. Elle, barely a toddler, clung to her mother's side, her wobbly steps a quiet plea for safety. Their father, a military officer, had died a hero in action, leaving Diana to piece together a life fractured by loss. I saw her exhaustion, the weight of a world she carried alone, and something stirred within me, not obligation, but a fierce desire to shield them all. I stepped into their lives, not because I was asked, but because my heart demanded it. I vowed to be the father Benjamin and Elle had lost, to craft a home where they'd never feel the absence of love. For years, I honored that vow. Long hours at work never kept me from them. I ensured they had good schools, new clothes, a sturdy roof, and warm meals every night. But it wasn't just about providing. I was there, front row at every school play, my applause echoing with pride, at every birthday, lighting cakes aglow with candles, on every vacation, weaving memories of laughter and adventure. They didn't call me Jacob, they called me Dad. And I believed it, loving them as my own flesh and blood, feeling like the luckiest man alive. Diana, too, seemed to lean into this new life, though hints of her grief lingered, unspoken. I assumed her quiet moments were the scars of loss, and I filled the gaps with my presence, hoping to ease her burden. But life, in its cruel rhythm, shifts when you least expect it. The first cracks appeared subtly, little disrespectful comments, sharp glances I dismissed as growing pains. Benjamin, now 17, began to see rules as chains, sauntering home past curfew, brushing off my advice with a smirk. Elle, at 14, mirrored him, her once adoring eyes rolling with disdain. I'd ask them to clean up, they'd ignore me. I'd urge schoolwork, they'd shrug and slip away. When I tried to talk, really talk, their ears were closed. Boundaries became battles, my every rule labeled oppression, my care mistaken for control. I turned to Diana, expecting her to stand beside me, to reinforce the values we'd built. But she was silent, her gaze lost in her phone or a sigh, as if I were the one out of line. At first, I made excuses. Maybe she was tired, maybe she feared conflict, maybe she was still healing from her past. But her silence grew heavier, a signal I couldn't yet read. The night my world fractured, the clock ticked past midnight, its hands slicing through the silence. Benjamin sauntered in, his boots scuffing the hardwood, no call, no text, his eyes daring me to challenge him. I stood in the dim glow of the kitchen, voice steady despite the ache in my chest, and asked, "Where have you been?" He met my gaze, his stare sharp as a blade. "You're not my real dad. Stop acting like you own me." The air turned to ice, my pulse a dull thud, as if my heart had forgotten how to beat. Then Elle, my sweet Elle, nodded and added, "Yeah, you're just some guy Mom married." I looked to Diana, waiting for her to correct them, to defend the years I'd given. She stood there, mute, her face a mask of indifference, no anger, no disappointment, nothing. That moment, something inside me shattered. Days later, the wound deepened. Elle had left the kitchen in chaos, plates piled in the sink, crumbs scattered, juice pooling on the floor. I asked her, calmly, to clean up, a simple call to responsibility. She smirked. "Why don't you do it? It's your house, isn't it?" Before I could respond, Benjamin chimed in, "Why are you always trying to boss us around? You're not even our real dad." Then Diana's voice, soft as a whisper but heavy as lead, "They have a point, Jacob. Maybe ease up." She didn't look up from her phone, denying me even the courtesy of her eyes. It wasn't anger or pain that surged through me, it was clarity. I was done. That night, alone in the dark, the house creaking around me, I traced the years I'd spent nurturing those children, the sacrifices etched into my bones. I'd given everything, only to be nothing to them. If I was nothing, I would act like it. So, I stopped. No more rides to school, they could find their own way. No more allowances, I wasn't their bank. No more stepping in to fix their troubles. No more advice, no more help, no more fatherly warmth. They didn't want me as a father. Fine. Let them face life without one. The decision tore at me, a grief sharper than I could name, but it was the only path left. Some people only value what they have when it's gone, and Benjamin, Elle, and Diana were about to learn that lesson. At first, they laughed, thinking my withdrawal a game. Good, Benjamin sneered. Now we don't have to deal with him bossing us around. Mom's got us. We don't need him. Diana filled the void, funding their shopping sprees, their fast food binges, their reckless spending, keeping them cocky and convinced I was expendable. Behind my back, their smirks and sarcastic jabs cut deeper, but I held my silence, knowing Diana's resources were finite. I had been the one holding this family together. The cracks appeared slowly. Fewer shopping bags cluttered the hallway. Fast food runs dwindled. Their closets, once overflowing, grew sparse. School fees went unpaid, and Diana's composure frayed. Benjamin got into trouble at school. Once, I'd have smoothed it over. Not now. Elle's phone broke. Normally, I'd have replaced it. Not this time. Worst of all, no more Uber rides. They faced the unthinkable, the city bus. One morning, Benjamin missed his ride, assuming someone would save him. When no one did, he sprinted 3 blocks, panting to catch the bus. Elle whined to Diana, "Why can't you just get us another ride?" Diana's reply was a quiet bombshell, "Because I don't have the money for that right now." I overheard, and a grim smile crossed my lips. Reality had arrived. A month later, Diana cracked. I came home to find her in the kitchen, arms crossed, face flushed with fury. "You're being a damn child, Jacob. What kind of man punishes his own family just because his feelings are hurt? You're neglecting your responsibilities." That word, responsibilities, stripped of love or respect, reduced me to a provider. I met her gaze and asked, "Why do you never defend me? Why do you let them treat me like this?" Her sneer was venomous. "Because I agree with them, Jacob. You were never really their father. I told them not to let you control them. I raised them alone before you, and I can do it again." The words chilled me, but not with pain, with relief. The truth was out. I was never their father, never her partner, just a walking paycheck. Benjamin and Elle watched from the hallway, arms crossed, smug satisfaction in their eyes. This was who they were. I nodded, turned, and walked away, not out of weakness, but because I was done. Their aggression intensified as I withdrew. My belongings began to vanish, work files, neatly stacked on my desk, gone one morning. My car, parked in the driveway, bore deep scratches along the driver's side, glinting cruelly in the dawn. Then, one night, I opened my closet to find my clothes shredded, buttons scattered like broken promises across the floor. The security cameras revealed the truth, Benjamin and Elle, laughing as they tore through my life. I didn't want to believe they were capable of such malice, but the evidence was undeniable. I played along, letting them think they'd won, remaining quiet even as they provoked me. But behind the scenes, I documented everything, every threat, every hostile text, every ruined item. I met with a lawyer, laying out the evidence, the vandalism, the toxic environment, the betrayal. He assured me I had a strong case for divorce and, if needed, a restraining order. The process was slow, weeks of meetings, paperwork, and police reports for the property damage. Though the authorities wouldn't act on torn clothes alone, the documented history strengthened my case. One morning, I left an envelope on the kitchen counter before work. Inside were the divorce papers, accompanied by copies of police reports, threats, and evidence of vandalism to preempt any lies Diana might spin. Her calls came, first angry, then desperate. I didn't answer. I'd moved out, taking only what mattered. Joint accounts were closed, her access to my money severed. Everything was in my name, and she had no claim. She was on her own. Diana's messages flooded in, brimming with blame. "You're such a coward, Jacob. You ran away the moment things got tough. You were never a real man. A real father doesn't abandon his family. I don't need you. I can take care of my kids just fine." It was almost laughable. She, who'd encouraged her children to cast me out, now called me the abandoner. I didn't reply. Weeks turned to months, and her messages slowed as reality sank in. Without my support, the life she'd taken for granted crumbled. Then, unexpectedly, the kids reached out. Benjamin's first message was tentative, "Hey, can we talk?" I stared at the screen, memories of his boyish laughter flickering. Days later, another, "Things aren't great right now." Elle's followed, "I hope you're doing okay." My thumb hovered, tempted by echoes of their younger selves, sticky hands, voices calling Dad. But then came the apologies. I'm sorry for everything. We should have treated you better. Things have been hard since you left. Mom, she's not handling things well. And finally, the one that stung, I miss you. Each word was a tether I'd thought severed. But I let them sit, unread, unanswered. Freedom meant choosing myself. Walking away was the hardest thing I ever did, not because I wanted them back, but because I'd convinced myself I needed them, that being a good man meant enduring disrespect, that love meant sacrificing dignity. I was wrong. A man who values himself doesn't linger where he's unappreciated. Now, I live for myself, my career, my goals, my joy. I've reconnected with old friends, traveled to places that stir my soul, and embraced hobbies I'd long neglected. Each morning, I wake not to drama, but to freedom. I learned never to let anyone treat me as a means to an end, never to beg for respect, and that some only see your worth when you're gone.